So I have here to check out and unbox the Ulefone Power 2. Now it's one of those large capacity mobile phones, battery capacities, 6,050 milliamp hours, just like the Alcatel K6000 I checked out, which is this one right here. Unfortunately, this mobile did not make the cut because there's a big problem with the wireless N. You can see it's on at the moment, but it just keeps cutting and dropping out all of the time, which is super frustrating. Hopefully they won't have those kind of issues with this one here. So it's running the same processor, which is an octa-core MTK6750T with a maximum turbo of 1.5 gigahertz. It's Android 7, and I believe it's just a stock Android 7. They haven't got like some custom launcher or anything like that on there. 13 megapixel camera on the rear and 8 megapixel camera on the front. And it has a 5.5 inch 1080p display, which is super common now. And for RAM, we've got 4 gigabytes of RAM and a 64 gigabyte eMMC 5.1 spec for storage. This one here I got from TomTop. And the typical DHL taxes I had to pay on it, of course, which came out to be 28 euros. Okay, so there is a quality control pass sticker on the side, but that has been broken. I did not break this myself, so that means they must have gone back into there after putting that on there for some reason. I wonder why. Hopefully they checked to see whether wireless N was going to work for me. So this packaging actually looks not too bad considering the price of this mobile. So here we have the phone, if I can get it out. Okay, it's one of those style. Alright, so focus on the accessories first. Obviously we have the SIM tool there so we can get access to the dual SIM tray which supports 2 nano SIMs. And for cables, micro USB 2, that feels like a quality cable they've used there. And they've also included an on-the-go adapter. Now we don't normally get that. Perhaps that was TomTop that chucked that in as an extra, considering that that would only probably cost about 10 cents or something. Power adapter here. Now it does support quick charge, so this should be rated to and is 12 volts, 1.5 amps. So it feels rather heavy as expected with this kind of battery capacity. So they've got some stickers on there, just outlining those specs that I was talking about before there. There is a front-facing fingerprint reader, and the thickness of it feels like it could actually be a little bit thicker than the K6000. Although really no, they're actually about the same. I'll weigh and measure this in just a second. So on the back here, they've just got this warning there, which is quite funny. It says dangerous to disassemble, easy to burn and explode. Yeah, of course, because it's got the battery in there. So the SIM card slot, they're just explaining that the first slot is either for a nano SIM and a micro SD card. Or, should I say, a micro SD card. You can't use both at the same time. And then the second slot is just a nano SIM. Now this backing plate here, that's made out of metal. We have a dual tone LED flash and then the 13 megapixel sensor. On the front, right at the top there on the left, that's our front facing 8 megapixel camera. We do have a status LED, the earpiece, ambient light sensor, and there'll be a proximity sensor in there too. This of course we need to remove. Just that pre-applied screen protector just to keep things scratch free. Now the glass that's on here on top of this 1080p IPS, they say it's Gorilla Glass 3 spec. And on the bottom, the micro USB 2 port there for charging and data, loudspeaker to the right of it, and that little dot you can see on the left of it, that is our microphone there. So the home button isn't a click-in style one, it's just capacitive, and there is the built-in fingerprint security, the reader in there. On the right hand side, the volume and power buttons feel like they're made out of metal to me, and they don't rattle around, which is great. I really hate it when you get mobile phones, these cheaper ones, and the buttons rattle. And on the top there is a 3.5mm headphone jack there. And lastly, on the top left hand side, the SIM tray. And it weighs in at 212 grams, so it's not the lightest mobile, or the thinnest, coming in at over 10 millimeters. So the build quality seems decent enough for the price. It's not a full metal unibody housing like they claim on some of the advertising material, because it still does have along the bottom and the top plastic there for the wireless and the Bluetooth reception and 4G reception. Alright, so time to power it up for the first time. See how long it takes. Okay, so it took around 20 seconds and it's still optimizing storage. So we haven't really booted right into the OS yet. Okay, so this is just going through the setup now. Locate the fingerprint sensor. No, it's not on the back. Anyway, that's a common mistake that happens. Okay, so we're in the UI now that you can see that they've put some rather ugly looking icons on here. I can't say I'm too much of a fan of this. They've gone for a black theme to try and make it look, possibly make it look a little bit bezel-less here. But before we get into some finer details of how much free storage we have and the version it's running everything, just check the fingerprint unlock. So it works straight away. You don't have to wake the device, but it's not exactly what I would call fast. That's a little slow before the screen comes on. I guess it's to be expected with this processor. So under settings, I can see there's Play Store already there. I'll have a look and see what bloke we have in just a second. First, we'll check out that free available memory. We're just under, we've got about 2.9 gigabytes free. And storage, we have approximately 54 gigabytes. Of course, you can expand upon that with a micro SD card. So the screen at the moment looks fairly decent. It's probably overpowering my camera actually a little bit. So that's maximum brightness. Hard to see, of course, with having a black theme, but there you can see now that is definitely overpowering the settings I have on my phone. So just going to have to tone that down a little. And bloatware applications. Can't really see many. There's, okay, parallel space. I could count that as one, I think. I didn't even know what that is. But otherwise, it's just got all your standard Google stuff on there. So Gmail, Maps, and really that's about it. Now, FM radio, so it does support hardware FM radio. Just to point out the buttons here. So we don't have capacitive hardware menu keys. Down below here, it actually does nothing. I thought it might detect touch, and this could be recent apps or back or the other way around. But home, of course, does work. At least we have that. Now, you can minimize these if you want to get them out of the way. But there's not really any point to doing that because I'm still going to need the back button and then recent apps. Touch input seems quite accurate and responsive, which is good. And it doesn't seem to have any refresh rate problems like I experienced with the Yumi Digi Z Pro, which seemed to have a refresh rate of like 30 Hertz and not 60. This to me seems smooth, it's fine. No such issues with this model. So there is just the one loudspeaker down the bottom. Let's have a listen to it. It's not a wonderful loudspeaker, but it does have a bit of volume to it at least, and it was getting over 90 decibels, which is good. Now, side by side here with the Alcatel K6000, which is on the left, I do prefer the build quality, I feel, of the Ulefone Power 2 to be a little bit better. It just feels nicer in hand because it has those rounded, curved edges there, and the screen, the plastic around the outside too, just feels better overall, the quality of this one. Now, there's a bit of a difference here when it comes to the fact that we've got the capacitive buttons down the bottom menu keys, and then we have to use the software ones, of course, on the Ulefone Power 2. Well, they both have very similar spec. This one is picking up, I think it's wireless AC. It could be just 5G wireless in, but so far it hasn't dropped wireless network, where this has already dropped it a couple of times. So there's something up with the performance, at least with the wireless in on my particular model here. It's not good at all. So here's the camera application. It's got a bit of an Apple look to it, hasn't it, with that shutter button there. So this is photo mode at the moment, and the settings we have here are all the typical ones you get on the MediaTek phones. Beauty mode, video mode, those settings go where you can control the white balance, flicker, again, all the standard stuff on the MediaTek ones. So it does have electronic image stabilization on video. You can enable that, and you can also set the video quality. Fine, I believe, is just 1080p. Well, it doesn't support 4K, this chipset. Now, I can see already that the viewfinder has a little bit of lag to it. Shutter rate seems okay. So I'm going to take a few photos with this now and quickly show you some samples as well as video from the front-facing and rear camera. So I'll start out here with a sample from the 8 megapixel front-facing camera video mode. It can take stills in 8 megapixel and you see the quality is, well, it's kind of to be expected in this price range. So it's not wonderful. And now the rear camera, this is on the fine setting, highest it will go. Starting to rain here at the moment. So the quality to me doesn't look wonderful. I can see their focus is struggling now and then, that it's going in and out of it. And have a look and see if it's going to focus up close. It does eventually, but I don't think it's quite got the lock there. I've just run the update here to see if there were any wireless updates coming through over the updates. Nothing at this stage. Perhaps it's not needed. And it is running the Android security patch level from March the 5th this year. So there we have it. It's a mobile with a very, very large battery capacity. And there's 6,050 milliamp hours. You would expect an insane, crazy battery life, wouldn't you, out of this thing? But that's not actually the case, as I found with the same combination here. So this, of course, is the K6000 with the exact same MediaTek 6750T processor in there and the same battery capacity. Now, this only gets around 7 to 8 hours of screen on time, which I find to be very disappointing considering. So the MediaTek chipsets just aren't as efficient, which is kind of why I recommend not really getting one of these mobiles. If you want good battery life, I say go for something like the Xiaomi Redmi Note 4 or the Redmi 4. They've got the Snapdragon 625 in them, and they can get, as seen in my review of the Note 4X, that it can get up to 15, 14 hours of screen on time. A much better phone, much better all-rounded, I believe, and they are even cheaper than these mobiles here. The other thing too is maybe you don't like MIUI, so that'd be one reason to go for these, because you're going to get stock Android 7, even though this particular model that I'm looking at right now, of course, has that ugly icon set. Thanks a lot for watching, and I do hope to see you back in the channel with more up-and-coming reviews soon.